Me again. I'll try to make this quick. I'll just try to stay on topic and get right to the point. I'm going to do my favorite Bob Dylan songs. I can't do a top 10 because there's so many great songs that he wrote. Obviously, I'm in kind of a rough neighborhood here. I just got out of the $1.25 store. Did a bunch of shopping here. So I might have to make a run for it. But I'll try to keep this short. Anyway, some of my favorite Bob Dylan songs, I think probably my all-time favorite would be One Too Many Mornings, the finger-picking version that he did really early on. That one is on the Times Era Changin' album. And it's just a simple, short, beautiful song that I like a lot, that has never gotten old for me. It just something about it, the lonesomeness of it, the kind of the coming of acceptance that his relationship with Suze Rotolo was ending, and almost coming out the other side. You know, he's gone through all the different stages. It's just a great song. Now, he changed the melody of that completely later on in the 60s. He did a strumming version, and but I prefer the finger-picking version that he did early in the 1960s off that Times Era Changin' album. I would have to say my second favorite song would be Shelter from the Storm off of Blood on the Tracks. That album is one of the greatest albums of all time. If you haven't heard Blood on the Tracks, it came out, I believe, in 1974, I think, or 75, roundabouts in there. And there's a lot of great songs on there. Buckets of Rain. I forget them all, but there's a lot of great ones on there. Tangled Up in Blue. My third favorite would be probably Wedding Song. That one is not as well known. Some of you might not have even have heard that song. But he did that on Planet Waves. And I wasn't crazy about that album, but that song just rips me apart every time I hear it. The lyrics on that are so intricate. Just like Shelter from the Storm. Just like all of Bob Dylan's songs. But this one is just really, hits home for me every time. Wedding Song. Oh gosh, I'm doing this off the top of my head. I would have to say, I like those early albums a lot. I would say Song to Woody. That's off his first album. His first album didn't sell well at the time. It sold a lot more since then after he got famous. Song to Woody is a song he wrote for his mentor, Woody Guthrie, Woodrow Wilson Guthrie, born 1912 in Okemah, Oklahoma. And part of the reason he left Minnesota to go to New York City, in fact, the main reason he left was so he could visit Woody Guthrie when he was in the mental hospital there in New Jersey. And so those four songs are probably my favorite. But there's so many other ones that, are great songs, just almost equally as good for me, like Girl from the North Country. Let me think, Blowing in the Wind. That's kind of a protest song, and I'm not really keen on protest songs, but this one isn't really, in your face. It's a song, that I think probably put him on the map, because Peter, Paul, and Mary covered that song. They had the same, Peter, Paul, and Mary, Bob Dylan had the same manager, Albert Grossman. And so Albert got Peter, Paul, and Mary to sing Bob Dylan's song. He was a genius manager. He knew that having Peter, Paul, and Mary sing this song, it could be a big hit, number one. Number two, he knew that it would put Bob Dylan, skyrocket his career, and it did. So many great songs. I'm just trying to remember. I should have did my homework on this, but so those early albums are my favorites. And then later on, when he started getting psychedelic, kind of abstract, poetic lyrics, like Bringing It All Back Home, that album was one of my favorite albums of all time. Gates of Eden, incredible song. Desolation, not Desolation, no, that came later. The one, Darkness at the Break of Noon, another great song. That whole album is full of, every song on there is a masterpiece in itself, practically. There's another song on there. He did a lot of great funny songs, too. He had a really funny funny sense of humor. It was a Waylon song, when a bowling ball came down the street and knocked me off my feet. I forget the name of that one, but that's a great song. He did a lot of talking songs and funny songs, which I like a lot. Kind of one of the early rappers, if you think about it, those talking songs. Rap music goes back even earlier than that. Woody Guthrie was rapping on a lot of songs. And before that, it's an old folk song tradition. Rap music really is kind of an offshoot genre of folk music. But anyway, where was I? I would say Visions of Johanna is one of my all-time favorite Bob Dylan songs. The best version of that song that I heard is a bootleg copy from a Royal Albert Hall concert. Just him and his acoustic guitar and harmonica. It just killed. The lyrics are just mind-bending. I don't know if he was on LSD or drugs or what when he came up with that. But that time period, he was coming up with all those crazy, wonderful, abstract lyrics that just blew everybody's mind and continue to blow everybody's mind to this day. Desolation Row would have to be one of my favorites. All Along the Watchtower, that was on, that came a little later. I like the lyrics of that song. I like that song, you know. Jimi Hendrix obviously covered that song. If you're not familiar with Jimi Hendrix, he was really popular in the 60s. And he's from the city where I live here now. He did a great version of that song. Let's see now. So those are probably my favorites. I like Not Dark Yet. That came in the late 1990s. But most of the songs that I like from Bob Dylan are really early 60s, mid 60s, a few songs later in the 60s, and then that one album that he did, Blood on the Tracks, and then a few songs here and there. After that, I didn't really hear much. I didn't listen to all of them, but I hadn't heard a whole bunch that just knocked me out. He did a couple of folk records, folk albums in the early 1990s, Good As I've Been to You, and those were great. He did an incredible cover of Two Soldiers and Hard Times Come Again No More, Froggy Came A-Courtin'. And he came out with a bootleg album, the first bootleg album around 1990. And I got that, and that's when I became a #1 fan of Bob Dylan, that bootleg album. And I heard all those old songs that never made those early albums, like Eternal Circle. Oh, I forgot to mention Eternal Circle. That's a lesser known, but that is, I'm going to put that in one of my all-time favorites, top 10 for sure. Short and sweet, but another great song. So if you haven't got that bootleg record, highly recommend that. A lot of great songs. House Carpenter, Lay Down Your Weary Tune, Walls of Red Wing. These never made the early albums, and these are some of his best songs. I don't know why those were left off. A lot of them are folk songs. He didn't write them, but you could have put them on there anyway. But he was writing so many songs at the time, so I understand why he would want to leave those off and put his own stuff up there. So they probably made the right decision, but I think it really boosted his career even more in 1990 when he put out that first bootleg album. And then there's been a lot of subsequent bootleg albums that have come out. So let me know what's your favorite song. This is already 9 minutes old. That's unbelievable. So I'll just cut this off. Let me know what your favorite songs are, and looking forward to hearing them. There's a lot of other great songs that I didn't mention, like Lay Lady Lay. I remember hearing that one on the radio in '69 when that came out. That was really popular all over the radio. Knocking on Heaven's Door, obviously. A lot of protest songs like The Times They Are Changing. Countless other protest songs. A lot of people are into that kind of thing. Protest music is not my favorite, like I mentioned, but you know, I still recognize the genius of those songs, so, and I like to listen to them still, but they're just not my favorite. Trying to think of really quick if anything I left out. I think I covered pretty much the basics. I'm sure I'm forgetting something. So anyway, take care. Bye-bye now. All right, here we go.